All right, so first we're going to recap what we just investigated about parallel and perpendicular lines. So first we noticed that parallel lines have the same slope, but they have different y-intercepts. That way they're not the exact same line. And the abbreviation for parallel is this right here. Slanted lines going in the same direction. Perpendicular lines, however, have opposite reciprocal slopes. So that was the key there. And the abbreviation for perpendicular is what looks like an upside down capital T. And on this one, we don't need to worry about the y-intercepts because they're not the same line since their slopes are different. So parallel lines, same slope, different y-intercepts. And perpendicular lines have opposite reciprocal slopes. So we are going to use that information as we work through today's activity. Remember, we need to think about what are the advantages to each of the forms. So in slope-intercept form and point-slope form, we do no work, the slope is given to us. In standard form, we have to go opposite of A over B. However, if they give us a random point, we would need to use point-slope form. If they give us the y-intercept, then we can use slope-intercept form. We can never go from slope and a point straight to standard form. We would have to first do slope-intercept or point-slope form first. Okay, we're going to use that information as we work through the scenarios. So first up, we have this line, 3x plus 2y is 5. So I'm going to show that in yellow. And then we are trying to come up with a parallel line that passes through this point. So we have a random point, and we want to come up with the equation of the line that's parallel to the yellow line. So from the yellow line, we need one piece of information. What is the slope? And remember, slope is opposite of A over B. So the slope here is going to be negative 3/2. For the green line, we know that the slope, if it's parallel, is the same. And then we also have the random point 6, negative 2. So if I want to write an equation and I know the slope and I know a random point, then the fastest way to do it is point-slope form. So let's go ahead and write that equation. Y minus a negative 2 would be plus 2 equals the slope of negative 3/2 times x minus 6. And right there we have an equation for the green line. It just says write an equation. It doesn't specify what kind. So point slope form with the given information is by far the fastest. So we can stop right there. All right, let's go ahead and look at example 2. So I have this line right here. And I want to come up with a line that is perpendicular and passes through this random point. So I've got a random point. I want it to be perpendicular. Okay, so I'm trying to come up with that blue equation. Now, all I need from the yellow line is I need its slope, and the slope is 1/3. I know that a perpendicular slope, which my blue line is perpendicular, is opposite reciprocal. So if it's positive, it's going to be a negative, and then we flip it. Well, that's the same as negative 3. And then I also know I have this random point, negative 2, 7. Okay, with that piece of information, a slope and a random point, the fastest equation to use is point-slope form. So let's go ahead and write that equation. Y minus, the y value is 7, equals the slope of negative 3 times x, and minus a negative would be plus 2. And right there is an equation describing the blue line. And again, it says write an equation, so I can be done. I don't need to do anything else. I've got an equation. All right, next one. Let's go ahead and start with what we're given. I have this yellow line. I want to come up with a parallel, and I want it to go through the point 8, 5. So I want a new line parallel through that point. So from the yellow line, I just need to steal the slope. The slope is 2/5. So for my green line, which is parallel, my parallel slope is going to be the same, 2/5. And then I also know this point, 8/5. With this piece of information, the fastest equation to start with is point slope form, just like we've been doing. So I'm going to go y minus 5 equals 2/5 times x minus 8. But instead of stopping right here, although this is an equation that describes the green line, they have asked me for one in standard form. So now I need to manipulate. So we're going to get to practice that equation manipulation we've been working on. So first I'm going to distribute. So I get 2/5 x minus 16/5. I know for standard form I'm not allowed to have fractions, so I'm going to multiply everything by 5. So 5y minus 25 equals 2x minus 16. I'm going to add 16 to this side. I am going to subtract 5y on this side. So final is negative 9 equals 2x minus 5y. And this equation right here is also describing the green line. It's just in a new form, standard form. And I know it's in standard form because x and y are on the same side. My a value is a whole number. My b and c values are integers. All right, so that was just one extra step because we had to get it into a different form than the fastest. So let's look at our last example here. We have this line. Make that be the yellow line. And then we have this random point. I just want to make sure that's the same that's in your foldable. Let me look. Nope, the point in your foldable, that's what I thought, was not the y-intercept. If it was the y-intercept, that would have made this really easy. But the foldable point is -9, -11. So let's go ahead and fix that. Okay, so now let's go ahead and finish this up. So random point, I want it to be perpendicular to the line. Okay, let's write down what we know. We need to take the slope from the yellow line, which would be opposite of a over b, which is -3 over 8. For a perpendicular line, the perpendicular slope is going to be the opposite. So if it's negative, it's going to be positive, and then the reciprocal. And then I have a point, -9, -11. Okay, with this information, the fastest form to do is point slope form. Now, had they given me the y-intercept, then the fastest form to do would have been slope-intercept form, but they did not give me that in our notes foldable. Okay, so let's go ahead and finish this off. So y minus a -11 would be +11. Equals 8/3 times x minus -9 would be +9. And this right here describes the blue line. The only problem is they asked for the equation to be in slope-intercept form, and this is not in slope-intercept form. So now I'm going to use my equation manipulation skills. So first thing I'm going to do is distribute. So y plus 11 equals 8/3 x. 3 goes into 9 3 times. 8 times 3 is 24. And then for slope-intercept form, I just need to move the 11 to the other side. So y equals 8/3 x plus 13. And this right here is also describing the blue line. All right, that is the end of today's notes.